I think my minutes might be up. All right, let's see. Kind of impromptu. Hold on, this is slightly embarrassing. Let's see what our. There we go. Yeah, that's me. All right. Well, welcome everyone. This has been a crazy adventure, and we're going to talk a little bit about Massie, about Thomas Massie. I'm definitely gonna have to clip this up, but you know, for my homies, you'll get the live version. So yeah, and if anyone else wants to clip this up, go for it. Okay, so we'll do this. All right. So if anyone's wondering why am I talking about Thomas Massie, it has to do with this actually, right here, which is MMTLP. So when I found out that Cynthia West, who actually just responded to me, she says that he doesn't like MMTLP, which is like just such a weird thing, right? So I didn't really care that much about Thomas Massie, and I don't even really know much about the guy he's running against, right? This isn't like me saying, wanting one person to win versus the other. I think Thomas Massie should probably be in jail. It's just my point, right? So, and it has to do with this because this is a big deal. So, MMTLP was a stock that was, anyway, you could say it was very manipulated. It wasn't even supposed to ever trade. Kind of long history. I'd probably butcher it if I went into it, all the details, especially on the spot. But it was just halted 2 days early before the dividend was supposed to arrive, right? And that's really messed up. Why do they halt it, right? They would have to either give back the 2 days. There's there's lots to that story. I'll leave that to those people from that were shareholders in MMPLP to explain it. But one of those people is Cynthia West, right? That's how I even know about her. And it was like kind of interesting because I didn't really think much about Thomas Massie. Like I think generally most people think, oh yeah, smaller government is better, constitutional values is better, all that kind of stuff. And so they think, oh, that's cool. That's probably, what Charlie Kirk was thinking. Like, oh yeah, in 2016, sure. I think everyone that was in the Senate in 2016 should be in jail. So if there was someone at least saying anything different, that would have been at least refreshing at that point. Anyway, that's a lot to say that I know about this situation only because when I found out, I actually saw the picture of Cynthia, and even though I had interacted with the MMTLP community, I didn't recognize her at first. I was like, she looks kind of familiar, and then it was like I saw all these people from MMTLP posting. I was like, oh my gosh, that's her, right? And she always talks about MMTLP. Like I think that's why she even knew Thomas Massie, was advocating for the shareholders in MMTLP so they could get a share count. And so um so so then I'm thinking, I was like, wait, did he ever sign the MMTLP letter? Right? This letter they're holding up, I guess it's AI, I think, but this is, they have a letter just basically saying, hey, we need an audited share count, right? And I got involved with MMTLP because I was a shareholder of a different stock, BBY, that had a similar situation in the fact that there was lots of market corruption. There wasn't a halt, but the same players were harassing, literally, people, market makers like Doug Sifu were harassing me and them. And so, I wasn't, I don't know. I just bought a stock, right? I wasn't part of any meme stock community. I wasn't part of anything. I literally bought a stock that I thought was undervalued. Um, the CEO of Bed Bath and Beyond said her plan to fix it. I was like, hey, that sounds good. It was at like, you know, 30 cents a share. I was like, yeah, I think it could get to a couple dollars probably if her plan works, right? And then suddenly it just goes into bankruptcy. It was very weird, right? So in that, I started looking for people that were that knew what was going on, and also started kind of digging in to see what happened, and it looked like a lot of corruption. And I found that the people that were fighting the corruption in the stock market the most were MMTLP. So we became friends. I just like supporting them because they're great people, right? And so in that context, right, I see Cynthia West that she's dating in 2024, dating Thomas Massie, and he still doesn't sign this letter. It's like the most bizarre thing ever because, like, you think anyone who's dating someone's like, oh, yeah, sure, babe, whatever you want. No, like, literally, it's like this signing this letter just means you support their cause, which is just objectively good, right? It's like, yeah, Wall Street's corrupt. We want an audited share count of this corrupt situation that happened, right? Literally, any politician should be like, yeah, that's obvious. And them signing the line, it's like it takes no energy, right? They just sign it, right? It's good PR because it's like, hey, I'm for my constituents, I'm for the small person. And he wouldn't do it while dating, one of the most vocal shareholders of MMTLP. And she actually just before I started streaming, she actually just responded to me and said he hates MMTLP. And I was like, I'm sure she's really busy, so um, hopefully I can get more information from her about this because I knew. So I started writing, I started researching because I knew that she had talked about it with him. And even if she hadn't talked about it with him, I knew that literally hundreds or possibly even thousands of people, I'm sure that he has thousands of voice messages, emails, everything from MMTLP shareholders. And because, I mean, people lost a lot. We're talking like tens of thousands, over 65,000 people lost a lot of money. And this wasn't some just meme stock, right? This was in the time of COVID when oil stocks, when oil futures literally went negative, right? So everyone knew that wasn't going to be forever. A lot of smart people realized like, hey, there's some things with oil assets that are really undervalued. One of them was Torchlight or MMTLP at the time. Not really sure. But anyway, I think it was a really smart investment. And then it was just illegally halted, which is super, super corrupt and super illegal, right? And so they've been fighting, amazingly for a long time. Here's one guy, just glass guy, right? He's one of. I mean, there's people like this that are fighting literally every day, right? And it would be really good to have that kind of people on your side. And all it would take is one little signature, and yet Thomas Massie wouldn't do it. So like, why on earth would you do that, right? Like, I'm just trying to even like, it's like they're just, it would only be good PR. No one would be like, oh, how dare you want to have an audited share count of this situation? Because like, even if he didn't believe that there was corruption, which we already know that there is for sure, it's a fact. But even if he wasn't sure that there was corruption, there would still be, it would be like, hey, look, I'm going to prove them wrong. I'll give them their audited share account and it will prove that they're wrong. Right. So either way, whether you were for, whether you believed their thesis or you didn't, you still would want them to have an audited share count. Right. So I'm just thinking about this. I'm just like, well, why wouldn't he do it? And it was then when I started digging. And so I made a series of articles, kind of, I'd say a little more in stream of consciousness, but I'll actually start with the second article just because the first things I found weren't the most significant. Takes a little bit more of Once you see the trend, it's the first one's obvious, but the second one is uh, this is the club for growth, right? So the thing here is that who is one of his major funders? It is a guy named Jeff Yass, right? Let's see. Is Thomas Massie? I'll just read it and then maybe I'll commentate. Is Thomas Massie calling for smaller government because that is the right thing to do, or because the globalist shadow government he works for doesn't want competition? I understand that's a very bold statement, but I think I'm gonna prove it. So this Protect Freedom PAC, Jeff Yass is a primary funder of this libertarian-leaning super PAC, right? Okay. Basically, there's a couple main people from it, and Massie is one of them. So who is well, actually, I guess first, so Torchlight literally showed up in the Epstein files. So this is actually funny. It's so ironic that Thomas Massie would be, the one championing like the release of the Epstein files when like, I mean, I guess he was right that no one actually read it and they would just, use it as a political weapon. But for anyone who did, which I feel like I'm one of the only ones that really dug through it, because there's a lot of things that I have yet to hear someone tell the story of Jeffrey Epstein and have it actually hit all the major points, or even any of the major points, to be honest. So, all right. So who's holding the most shares of this Torchlight besides Jeffrey Epstein? Right? It's actually Jeff Yass's company, Sequoia International. So what are the odds of that? That's so crazy. So as one of the world's largest market makers, SIG maintains a permanent foundational inventory of thousands of listed equities. Well, when it says inventory, that doesn't mean they actually own anything, because they don't actually have to report anything. So, I mean, they might not, but whatever. They were claiming to have a huge position of Torchlight Energy. This baseline inventory is necessary to fill standard daily buy and sell orders on the stock exchange. Theoretically, that's what it's for, right? When retail investors aggressively bought call options during the merger mania, SIG, acting as the liquidity provider selling those options, was forced to instantly buy millions of shares of underlying stock to remain market neutral. So when it says instantly buy, the thing is that how in the stock market, there's not supply and demand. It's not like there's a pool of shares for or an order book where it's like, hey, here are all the orders and you just buy them. How it really works is the algorithms, like the, Aladdin, whatever the software they use, it makes an evaluation for a stock, and then they just point the stock there, right? And that's actually what literally Ken Griffin said. That's how it works, right? He says we aim it at the stock at a certain price. It has like some, like it looks like it's doing things, but that's just literally an algorithm making it look like it's has some sort of variability, and they factor in a little bit of buying and selling pressure into that. But if it's not, if they say that if the algorithms say that company is going to go bankrupt, it will just fail to deliver those shares. So it will. So it's saying it's buying these shares, but it's functionally shorting these shares. So that's the thing is that these market makers can functionally short shares. And when you and at the end of this, by the end of this, you should see that the people involved control the whole financial system from the beginning to the end. So if they need to make sure that never blows up in their face, that they just shorted a bunch of stocks that they don't have, they can, right? They can do everything, including halt the stock, right? They can use FINRA. They can weaponize a part of the government that's supposed to, well, actually not a part of the government. Anyway, it should be a role of the government that's supposed to monitor the stock market. They can have that part of the system just halt everything. And so anyway, so they weren't actually buying, and they want these liquidity events where they can short a bunch of shares at that high price. I probably won't go into it here, but they do that because shorted shares don't have to be reported. And all the big banks that were laundering money for terrorist networks like Hezbollah, Hamas, all that stuff, the whole black market needs to move a lot of money. And so they were using just stripping money transfers of the personal data so that no one would know where it came from. But it turned out that was too difficult. So what they switched to was just shorted shares, because then no one would ever know. And yeah, I mean, like, I think it was BNP Paribas in France got tagged with like 2014 with almost a $9 billion fine for laundering money for Iran terror groups, right? And it's interesting because that's when Jeffrey Epstein was holding these shares, was 2014, right? Okay, so these market makers have exemptions. They don't have to actually. They have like a 35-day, basically exemption, where kind of like check kiting, where people would send a check across the United States and use that money in like the 2 weeks before it had to settle. These market makers have 35 days before they even have to show that they tried to find a share to deliver, right? Which is like insane to me. All right. And you can see this kind of, and the crazy thing is that so few people even really know what's going on. I mean, it's just, anyway, they can get away with murder. And people like here on Wikipedia, they're not even calling it the right thing. They're saying, oh, there's allegations of spoofing, stock spoofing, which is where you just put a price, and that is part of what they're doing. But it shows that this small company was artificially manipulated down by Susquehanna, Citadel Securities, and Virtue Financial, right? So there's the main market makers that are doing this, and so the main people with incentive to commit crimes, like the ones that happened to Bed Bath and Beyond and GameStop, AMC, MMTLP, all those. It's these people, right? And of course, it was when Joe Biden was president, which is, yeah, it just, it's not a coincidence that that MMTLP letter, the only people who signed it, of the senators and the congressmen, the vast majority were Republicans. There's only a small handful of Democrats. And it's just kind of obvious why that is, because they've been laundering money for the black market for a long time, right? Which sounds insane. Oh, the government's laundering money for the black market. I mean, they are the black market. Really, like, whenever anyone thinks that's a conspiracy theory to say that, it's like, think about the Iran-Contra affair. What was that, right? Where literally our CIA was selling weapons to Iran through Israel using drug money from, South America, right? That's like, that happened, right? Supreme Court hearings about it, congressional hearings about it, all proved it happened. And then no one cared. All the boomers were like, yeah, whatever. It's whatever. It's not whatever. And since no one cared, they just doubled down and did it even more, right? So it's kind of confusing in this world with politics, because Jeff Yass also donated money to Trump, right? And the thing is that one thing I'm going to be showing is you can definitely tell what camp people are in, right? So say they give a bunch of money, it might just be to make it not look like they're doing what they're doing, or it might just be, a way to kind of settle things where it's like, okay, I have bigger fires to put out. So I'm not, you know, the I guess we'll get more into that because it just becomes obvious what the sides are, right? That the two sides are, you have these globalist bankers, right? And these international companies, right? That obviously they want globalism because they're international companies. And so you have those, and then you have the nationalists like Trump. So everything Trump's doing is completely against what the globalists are doing. So they all hate him for tariffs. Well, I think tariffs are amazing, right? One, it brings in money. Two, there's no other way to restore our manufacturing in America than to make an incentive structure. So how amazing is it that we get to make money from tariffs while, incentivizing building and creating more jobs in America? So, anyone that says that the economics don't work out, they definitely do, because when you ship money out of the country, that money gets used outside of the country, right? So there's less shipping that has to happen when things are made in the United States, and there's more jobs, which means there's more money. So it actually more than balances out, and it's actually just something it's just a national security risk to not do it. So we just have to. But the globalists want us to be poor, and they want us to be dependent on this global trade, which we'll get into. It's kind of actually hard to even know how to, the problem, once you see it, you can't unsee it because it's so obvious. The globalization, because the key to that is all these all the shipping lanes, right? And that's why they use terrorists for the shipping, to control the shipping lanes, right? And the terrorists work with the bankers, right? So that it looks normal. Like, for example, if you're going to go through the Strait of Hormuz, what do? You pay the Bank of Lloyd's Bank, the London Lloyd's Bank or whatever. So you pay them insurance, and then what do you know? Nothing happens when you're traveling through the Strait of Hormuz. And if you don't pay them, you get attacked by terrorists. So that's kind of interesting, right? How do they work that out? So it's like you see this like London and Middle Eastern terrorism connection. Okay. So the other thing is you keep seeing China, and when I say China, I don't mean the people there. I didn't even know that I necessarily mean the government. I think that more so it's these international corporations, right? Because how weird is that this TikTok is a Chinese company, but one of the major owners is Jeff Yass, right? So he didn't want Trump to ban TikTok. Okay. So because they could do illegal things if it was based out of China. So this whole China connection is, and the other reason why I wouldn't say it's just specifically China, but rather the corporations there, is because it's all about the drug trafficking. And the two major drug centers, you have the Golden Crescent, which is Iran, Afghanistan, and Pakistan, right? That's why to negotiate with Iran, we talked to Pakistan, right? And where was the bank that the Iran Contra was doing all the laundering through? It was in Pakistan. So, that's kind of like the hard part, is our government was not just involved. We were like the center of the global drug trade, or our federal agencies, I guess, more accurately, right? And so because the military has rules overseas, but the federal agencies don't, and that should change. They should make that different. But the other one besides the Golden Crescent is the Golden Triangle. So that's Thailand, Myanmar, and Laos, right? So I think that that is what's influencing China is whoever is in control of all that, right? And I think it's these corporate people, right? Um, because literally London bankers have been in control of the opium trade in Asia and the whole world for well over 300 years. All right. So, all right. So we have ByteDance, who owns TikTok, right? And let's see who. So here's the group, right? And to a lot of people, this probably means nothing. Um, so you have the major backers include Susquehanna, right? So that's who's sponsoring Thomas Massie. So just that alone should be looked into. So it's like, why is someone who owns like the most influential company in China, why are they paying a politician to not have the United States get rid of the terrorism in Iran? Because Iran is a proxy of China, right? Like 90% of the oil in Iran goes to China, right? Why would Iran not care that they're on the black market, that they're sanctioned for like 50 years? Just seem to like, it's like, hey guys, all you have to do is just not have nukes and just not scream death to America all the time, and you could trade on the global market. And they're like, nah, we'll just stay sanctioned forever, right? Kind of weird, right? I mean, they could have just literally partnered with China and just be like, hey, let's just have a no limits partnership with China or Russia. And then they wouldn't need nukes, right? They're like, okay, well, we're no limits partnership with China, so they'll protect us, right? But they didn't because they're a proxy, right? So a terrorist proxy that has its own terrorist proxies, not just the Strait of Hormuz, right? There's the Bab or whatever, the other strait by Yemen, and their networks go all the way up. I mean, anyway, all the way up to the original banking center of the Middle East, which was Lebanon, right? Okay, so you got Susquehanna International. They got 15% of ByteDance, right? The most influential company in China. Okay. And then you have Peak XV Partners / Sequoia China, right? And then General Atlantic. Oh my gosh. General Atlantic's where Doug Seif got to start. And KKR, which was basically Bear Stearns recreated, and Coatue Management. So through all this, it's just like you think in nature, how much energy do animals spend trying to camouflage themselves so they don't get seen? It's a lot, right? We just saw it. Eileen Wang, who was a Republican, and then she switched to being a Democrat a few years ago, and then we find out she's really just a government asset. Okay, so you start looking at these companies and you're like, okay, like to know, because it's like, well, if Jeff Yass also gave this money to Trump, is Trump in on it? It's like, no, like is Trump supporting the carbon credits market? No, right? And they Susquehanna International and all those other people are the core people that are running the carbon credit ESG scam, right? So that's why it's just definitely not a thing. They're using so it's also interesting, the environmental social governance thing is that China is the one funding it, but they're not the ones doing it, right? So they create these laws, they get all of our companies and our governments to enforce these laws to make our countries insanely inefficient, right? So that we're spending trillions, literally trillions of dollars on green energy stuff most of which was made in China, right? 80% of all of the solar panels in the world are made in China. So it's just interesting that they don't use their own green stuff, right? They're just polluting the environment like crazy and they don't care, right? But yeah, they want us to not use plastic straws, you know? So um you can see that it was just the evolution of the mafia shakedown where, you know, they're charging a toll. And we know exactly how that money moves, right? All the carbon credits you buy, they would go to the Caribbean, and then that money would go to FTX with Sam Bankman-Fried, and then go right back into the pockets of the politicians who lobbied for those laws to be created. Okay, so it's just kind of interesting because then Thomas Massie and MTG wanted China to stay in control of TikTok America, right? And you know, I get that there's a lot of things going on, but it's like it's one thing for our own government to spy on us because, you know, hopefully we have mechanisms to hold them accountable. I don't know that that's gone very well, but we don't have any mechanisms to hold accountable if a foreign country is spying on us, stealing our information, selling our information. Because what's the main thing that the scammers do of the golden triangle? They sell a lot of drugs, but what they do a lot more is actually scams, right? Like literal phone scams, email scams, all that stuff comes out of Asia. So if TikTok's stealing our information, giving it to them, selling it to them so that we can be scammed, I mean, uh, yeah. So anyway, let's see. So of course, Thomas Massie, MTG were both against it. Let's see. So here's another one, right? Like some of you might know um what this was. So the thing is these globalists, they're actually smart, right? They're super evil, but they actually are smart. And right here, what she did, Megan Kelly did, was basically try to destroy um Trump's woman voter base, right? And luckily, he was super charismatic and quick on his feet and had an immediate, really good response. But that could have been disastrous. I mean, people could have thought it wasn't funny, didn't matter if it was funny about the only woman he calls a pig is Rosie O'Donnell. So, you see them like build up for a long time this credibility and then cash out in one event because if she could have taken out Trump at that moment, the globalists would have won, right? So they know that and they are willing to invest years to have that one moment where, you know, the weapon, it's like a, you know, worse than a nuclear weapon in as far as influence goes, right? So anyway, let's see. So JP Morgan is also part of this same group. They debanked Trump, and JP Morgan also does a lot of stock lending, which that's what they call it. They call it stock lending. They don't call it shorting, but really, um, anyway, JP Morgan does a lot of the shorting. And here it is. Then they have the Robinhood Foundation. It's literally a Marxist organization, and who's part of it? A main key player is uh, Levy. I don't know what his first name is. Anyway, Robin. In addition, being CEO and president of the Robinhood Foundation, Levy is also senior advisor to private equity firm General Atlantic. So it's so weird to me that this is like one of the main groups that Jeffrey Epstein, one of his main networks, and almost no one that talks about Jeffrey Epstein actually talks about this. So it's super, super weird, but super central. There's always the Council on Foreign Relations part of it as well. Like Epstein was part of that, right? So General Atlantic. So we're going through all the people that Jeff Yass was. Let's see. Oh yeah, that are in on the TikTok China, right? So yeah, General Atlantic. So here's from literally the Epstein files, and there's a lot. It just would take a long time to organize all of it. I have it somewhere. I just anyway, the deal like General Atlantic and the people like the CEO come up a lot in the Epstein files, right? This is him, the CEO, and this is at the Museum of Modern Art, and that was, I mean, one, it was started as a CIA asset to for propaganda, and literally, just if you want to know who they is, the like the evil cabal of people that is controlling the world. I mean, just um, look at the board members and the trustees of the Museum of Modern Arts. It's that's at least a good chunk of the list. And then you got anyone involved at J.P. Morgan or Lloyd's Bank. Those are also um, big people involved. All right. So with this whole Susquehanna thing, it's all right. You see how so Doug Sifu, who is was the CEO of Virtu Financial and was harassing all of the shareholders, Bed Bath and Beyond, MMTLP, etc. Um, he got his start at Paul Weiss and then working for General Atlantic, right? Um, and it was that connection at General Atlantic that got him his position at Virtu Financial. Um, I could go into it, but I mean, the crazy. There's just so many. It's so many through lines that just show what is happening and all the people involved. That's very obvious, right? Doug Sifu hates Trump. You know, he's a hardcore Democrat. You can see all the people he's donated money. He's a mega donor for Democrats. He loves Hillary Clinton, all that stuff, right? So, and it gets darker, right? Like he was the lawyer for the rap or not rapper, I guess. I mean, he sells clothes to rappers. A guy named Carl Connie, who literally did a fashion show at the White House, and in his own, literally, this is his own bio on his own website. He says he got his start selling custom clothes to Jamaican drug dealers. Right? That's his own. That's how he says he got started. So he starts selling to Jamaican drug dealers and then immediately gets to do a fashion show at the Clinton White House. And who was his first one of his first models? P. Diddy, right? It's a small world, right? And then we look at KKR. Bear Stearns is where Jeffrey Epstein got his start. And basically they made money shorting their own company down. So they basically gave all their good assets to JP Morgan and whoever else, and then they shorted their own company down in 2008 and then just started over. And then they even got taxpayers to pay for it all and pay for golden parachutes for them, which is insane. And so a lot of the really corrupt people, like every time I find like a financial criminal, like they literally came from Bear Stearns. You would think that they would just not include that on their LinkedIn, right? Because it's like, oh, anyone who was like in any position of power at Bear Stearns in 2007 is probably an absolute criminal. You would think that, but they put it on their LinkedIn. It's super insane to me. The main founder, Henry Kravis, his wife is on the steering committee of the Bilderberg group, right? And they're totally like their meetings are about how to fight Trump. That's literally what their meetings are about, right? Because they're globalists. So when you look at it, it's just like it's so clear who the teams really are. but everyone wants to say that they're different, right? They're like, "Oh, but there's pictures of Trump with Epstein in the '90s at a public event." It's like, I'm sure there are, right? But the thing is it's like, they were mortal enemies after 2004. And because Trump's not a globalist, right? Nothing about what Trump has ever did in his whole life has ever been globalist. It's always been nationalist, right? So, these globalists, hey, that's why he's not, invited to um, the Bohemian Grove, right? So, anyway, like these people are pissed. They're so pissed they're literally threatening the hantavirus to do another COVID, right? Um, they're absolutely insane. And here's a good example of, I think a lot of people don't really understand what Trump's doing. Um, but here's a great example of what he does. I don't know if you guys can hear this. Oh wait, I'm not sure if it's actually playing, but um, the thing is, so he has a big event and he invites the CEO of Pfizer, Albert Bourla, introduces him as a friend, and then everyone boos him like on live television is great, right? So what Trump says and what he's actually doing, you have to look at the results. What is the outcome? So he says, "This is my good friend," right? Then the result is the Pfizer CEO gets booed on national television, and everyone realizes that we all agree that we hate them. That's a huge deal, right? So what it accomplishes is amazing, but he's doing the art of the deal where he's bringing attention to something um, in the way that works the best, right? Because then you can say, "Hey, I was genuinely trying. I didn't know they would boo you, right? Like, why would I assume they'd boo you? I think you're great." So that's all right. So same thing with Bill Gates, right? The internet was completely filled with people saying, how much of a traitor Trump is because he had dinner with Bill Gates. Well, then that means Bill Gates is trending, right? And everyone knows, oh yeah, we all know he's tried to genocide the entire planet with COVID and everything, and he's willing to do it again, right? So, that was totally brilliant, right? So anyway, that was part two. The reason I brought it up first was just because the Susquehanna part is just so important to specifically the MMTLP situation, that when you look at that and you look at why Thomas Massie wouldn't sign this letter, right? It cost him nothing. Literally cost him nothing, lot to gain, nothing to lose. Why wouldn't he sign it? Because his main funder was shorting it, right? They were probably impossibly short. Probably just Susquehanna alone probably had 5x the amount of shares at least, right? And so if they would never be able to close that short position, right? So they wouldn't want resolution. It's just it's so obvious when you look at it, right? Um, I guess we'll actually do um, yeah. Well, before we do the first one, because this is just a little bit more obvious. So is this Thomas Massie's boyfriend, right? So this is a real. I mean, I added on the headbands, but the rest of the picture is literally a screenshot of his of this guy's. So this is one of his major donors. This is his Instagram. So it says this is Kerry does Vegas, right? Kerry Welsh, I think is his name. Had a blast eating, drinking, and touring DC with my election night date. Thomas Massie. Okay, interesting, right? So Trump like posts this, but he doesn't say anything about it, right? He doesn't say why it's weird. I don't know if he knows that most people literally won't even look it up. I mean, it's just super weird. But anyway, I did my digging, and so he's a big part of the Reason Foundation. And here is one of his articles, right? Kerry Welsh, right? Written in 2000 or 2024. So this was like right before the elections or right after. Anyway, I did business with China and America won. Everyone benefited when I manufactured my invention in China, but Americans benefited more. So it's like, okay, so why would anyone not have the question, is Thomas Massie a China asset? Right? So here it's like his major funders are really pro China, right? Like I'm all for a great relationship with China, right? But like it's always America first and then a healthy relationship with other countries, right? But these people are globalists. They want free trade, which is, you know, it hurts us, right? Free trade is, I mean, actually I don't know who free trade really benefits other than just the bankers. So it sounds great. The word, oh, free trade. No, it's literally the thing is that free trade just exploits a different country at a time while making it impossible for anyone else to manufacture anything. So yeah, free trade's really bad. Um, Tariffs keep people honest. It gives them incentive to invest in their own country, which they should anyway, right? So it gives us incentive to manufacture in our own country, but it also forces them to have the incentive to actually build their own manufacturing base, which is important, right? So, all right. So he says, oh, Democrats and Republicans might not seem to agree on much these days, but when it comes to trade, they chant China trade bad, tariffs good. You know, they literally don't. Like most people are retarded and don't know that tariffs are good. So I literally actually no Democrats. See, this guy's just straight up a liar. Like you just look at this phrase. It's the stupidest thing. Like Democrats and Republicans are not chanting China trade bad, tariffs good. So anyway, and he's like, "Oh, the data shows the exact." No, it doesn't. Okay, that's retarded. Okay, so it's just super obvious that I mean, you can just finish right there, right? His two major funders are completely pro-China at the expense of America, and just that alone should kind of disqualify him, And I think people should investigate him, and criminal action should be taken, right? We'll keep going because it's like literally just keeps getting darker and darker. So I go through this guy's Instagram and wow. So he says, RIP Little Richard, who died 3 years ago today at the age of 88. In the 38 years since this photo was taken, no one has ever looked at me the way he did. Okay, so like I'm not up on pop culture, so I definitely had to look up about this guy. It was pretty funny to Little Richie. So um Richard got involved in voyeurism in his early 20s. A female friend would drive him around picking up men who would allow him to watch them having sex in the back seat of cars. Wow. Okay, that's weird. That's literally like picking up strange, just picking up all everything about that is really weird, okay? So it's like that's the guy that he's like, no one's looked at me like he is. That's because he's got a weird fetish with looking at people in a sexual way, right? Um, Richard told Penthouse that he always knew he was gay, saying I've been gay my whole life. Anyway, lots of Richard left. Richard left Oakwood College after exposing himself to a male student. Anyway, oh, geez. In 1962, Richard was arrested for spying on men urinating in toilets at a Trailways bus station, right? This is some weird shiz, right? And so he would still think this is in 2023. Yeah, I want to post that no one's looked at me the way that he looks at me. Like, is that weird? This is seriously so weird, right? And then here's another picture, the date night picture. That's without the bandanas. Um, so then you start looking at all the other people. Giving my heartfelt thanks to one of the young giants of America's liberty movement, Greg Lufanoff, or whatever. Okay. Who's this guy? Interned with the American Civil Liberties Union, Northern California, and Organization Aid for Refugees. Okay, so we got China, and we're going to start to see the trend of this globalism, but of open borders, right? Which open borders is George Soros's whole thing, right? Open society. So let's see what else. There was something else about this. Oh yeah, so let's see. Him and his friend were awarded the Hugh Hefner First Amendment Award, right? It's like, okay, I didn't know that he had an award, right? Like, my first thought when I thought of Hugh Hefner was like his thing with like this realism alien cult. Like they did like a Rails Angels. Like anyway, that's just what popped in my head when I saw that. So but the ACLU, that's basically like the SPLC, who we now know was funding all these like alt-right demonstrations and funding people like anyway, they're just fabricating all these events to make it look like things are more racist than they were, and they got exposed for it. So that's awesome. Oh, but they like literally the ACLU represented Oliver North, right? This is the guy who was doing the Iran Contra. So everything comes back to the same people that were doing the Iran Contra still kept doing it, right? And that's why all those people that were still doing it hate Trump, because he's stopping that. All right. This guy, let's see, Raymond Gian. They had several pictures together. Stanford Center for Sustainable Development. Okay, that sounds pretty progressive. I mean, just the fact is it's Stanford, but also sustainable development. And what do you know? China connection. He's born in China, went to school in Singapore. Okay, yeah. So a lot going on. Oh, and then this one. This was really interesting, right? So this guy, Remco Waller. I should look up that shirt because I think that's also anyway. So this guy was like really high up in Unilever, which we'll get to later. I mean, Unilever is, as far as the globalist companies, it's probably one of the most globalist companies because they just do basic products, and so they literally are everywhere. And so there's also MGM, right? And anyway, it's just the trend of these globalist companies and China just keeps coming up, and drugs. So then he also is part of the impact cabinet of United Way, which anyone who's really looked into the United Way is one, it's very progressive, as progressive as it gets, and also just as corrupt as it could get, right? So it's like I don't even need to like explain that. I mean, hopefully, if people see that, like as soon as they see United Way, they should just think, "Oh, total scam," right? So I didn't write anything about that, but you have the Manhattan Beach Education Foundation. He's president and board member. Okay, so you start going through all these different people that are also on this board with him, and it's like, oh, where she worked on the Hewlett Foundation. That's literally the most globalist you could get, right, is the Hewlett Foundation and the Tides Foundation, right? It's just like you can't even make this stuff up. It's like I just went through the list and like, oh, what do you know? She's a representative of Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the Giving Pledge, and Google, right? So, just the number of it's just astounding how many like how deep these globalist connections are, right? So this is someone that's supposed to be libertarian, yet everything they're doing is literally the same as Democrats. It's just like they're Democrats that are trying to brand themselves differently. But they're not doing anything different. They're just trying to brand themselves differently because it's like intellectually whatever. And then here's another board member, Goldman Sachs and PricewaterhouseCooper. Okay. So, a lot of people don't know this, but the person that Jeffrey Epstein emailed the most was Kathy Rumler from Goldman Sachs. She's also at FINRA. She was the one who probably listed MMTLP, even though it was never supposed to trade. And she was probably the one who halted it as well. So, in this whole situation of MMTLP, it's all comes back to her, right? A lot of people don't know this, but like since they don't like think about this, I guess, but like the whole goal of these people was to put up to use DEI, right, and ESG to control everything. And so like Goldman Sachs, they're invested $10 billion to make 1 million black women executives, right? So this is who Jeffrey Epstein was really working for. That's why like all the major people he actually was working like of his team, his actual team were women, right? Like Ghislaine Maxwell, Kathy Rumler, Lynn Foster Rothschild, Ariana de Rothschild. So he helped get the money from those Rothschilds using their wives to give the money to Goldman Sachs, right? And other companies like that, KKR, et cetera. Another one, Nadia Marashenko and Karina Suliak, right? So that's why you see Goldman Sachs and BlackRock and JP Morgan all doing all this DEI stuff. And I hate to say this, but it's, when you look at Bed Bath & Beyond, the two main people that destroy the company, well, two of the main people was Harriet Edelman and Sue Gov. Sue Gov was CEO when it went bankrupt, right? So I guess they want to do something illegal and they want like a woman there so that no one can get mad at them, I guess. Not really sure. Anyway, when you look into the whole DEI and ESG thing, you're going to find a lot of PricewaterhouseCooper written a lot on that. So, I don't know, I kind of highly recommend looking into that. They're the ones who audit end to end the whole financial system: JP Morgan, Citadel, DTCC, Virtu Financial, Goldman Sachs. So they can commit a lot of fraud because they audit everyone. So no one would ever know if there was fraud because it all stays within them. So what do you know? This guy, Kerry, is also friends with MTG, right? Shocker. Which isn't really a shocker because she literally cheated on her wife or on her husband with this guy who's like literally a tantric sex, orgy guy. The evil eye, I don't know, just looks like a total freak, dude. So yeah, peas of a pod, I guess. All right, so going back to like the Reason Foundation, this was interesting. Brian Hooks is an American nonprofit executive who is a CEO and chairman of Stand Together. He is also the president of Charles Koch Foundation. Oh, what do you know? The Koch Foundation is the other major sponsor of Thomas Massie and president of Stand Together Fellowship. Hook is currently on the boards of whatever that is, Mercatus Center, the Cosmos Institute, the Economic Policy Innovation Center, the Institute for Humane Studies, and the Reason Foundation. the Just Trust, Believe in People, and Movement Music. Okay. So you start to see all these things and like, oh, what do you know? The ACLU again, right? And the Heritage Foundation, which is interesting. I don't actually know much about the Heritage Foundation. I probably should look it up. Oh yeah. So then the part that stood out to me actually is he was a co-signer on the 2023 opinion piece in the Chronicle of Philanthropy titled "We Disagree on Many Things, but We Speak with One Voice in Support of Philanthropic Pluralism," along with prominent philanthropists, blah blah, and Darren Walker. Like, I would not be in the same room as Darren Walker, right? This guy is literally all the worst things about globalism. He was vice president of the Rockefeller Foundation. Then he's, president of the Ford Foundation. He's president of the National Art Gallery, the National Gallery of Art. Let's see what else. Carnegie Hall, Lincoln Center, New York City Ballet. I mean, like, it might not sound like, if you actually look up who all the trustees of all these companies are, which I have, it paints a really obvious picture. And the International Council of the Museum of Modern Art, right? What do you know? Council on Foreign Relations. It's just all like everything, like the worst of everything, right? So, yeah, that's one bad dude. Here's Reason Foundation editor in chief. So she is a future tense fellow at New America. It's like, what's that? Okay, well, we'll just cut to like one part. The organization maintains funding disclosure policies and publishes a list of institutional donors on its website. Top institutional donors in recent years have included Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Bloomberg Philanthropies, Carnegie Corporation of New York, the Ford Foundation, Google, Alphabet, MacArthur Foundation, and the Rockefeller Foundation. Great. And then you look at the president or chair, whatever, Sally R. Orsbag. I mean, that's a weird organization. And it shows, this actually organization shows how fake it really is they're claiming to do all these kind of libertarian things or good things or whatever. And literally they're like, okay, well, we should push back on Google a little bit. And so Google made them fire the person that from there that made an article about how Google has a monopoly. It's like, you can't make this stuff. Like, what are they supposed to say? Oh, we're supposed to fight this cause against these institutions, but not the institutions that are funding them. Yeah. So this one will become. We'll touch on this in a little bit. One that's just creepy, right? So this is another from Carrie Welsh. Sad news about Zinzi Mandela's passing. Zinzi was the 59-year-old daughter of Winnie and Nelson Mandela, the former president of South Africa. Zinzi's daughter, Zinzi's daughter, Zoleka Mandela, attended Montessori school with my friends, Leon Love and Amagafen girls. Interesting. Okay, so yeah, one that's just creepy, but it just shows that he's connected to the Mandela family, right? Which will take us to the next one. Let's see. What happens in South Africa stays in South Africa. All right. So who is that guy, right? I had Grok put on some bandanas. Grok was kind of being a little busy on some of my requests, but just to symbolize the Hezbollah connection, I would just tell him to put a bandana on it. Okay. So like the other thought was like, there's so many questions that it's like interesting that someone's like, well, who cares? Like, so what? He got over his dead wife, um, and then he's dating a girl, right? Like, um, I mean, unrelatable, but I mean, I get it's fine. That is like that isn't the worst thing in the world, right? Um, but there's like also a lot of I feel like follow questions. One, she says that that he's abusive and has some weird fetishes. Okay, both those things are not good. But then she says he has some connections to Iran. So I'm excited to see those. But I actually think I already know what they are because it's kind of really obvious if you actually start doing the digging. Um, but then too, like, why was he even in South Africa? Like, no offense, I'm sure there's some great people in South Africa, but like, why the f would you ever want to go to South Africa? Like, it's like ranked number one for most dangerous place on the planet almost every year, like for as long as I remember. Um, so why would you go there? That's just so weird. Um, yeah. It's just kind of jokingly thinking like because I know that they have a lot of Satanism there, like straight up like I was like, was he going to be part of this like devil worship? Um, that they these murders behind this like this grow like this growing amount of occult gangs in South Africa, of like literally like human sacrifice kind of weird shiz, right? Which you'd think, ah, that's like probably everywhere or whatever. I don't know, but a lot of people don't know the connection of the Rothschilds and South Africa, but in I don't know if it's necessarily like part of the great game or whatever, but basically the main chess pieces on the board is what controls the trade between the East and the West. And there's only really two ways to get from the East and the West. One is through the Suez Canal, which shocker, the Rothschilds own. They built it anyway, and they own it. And then two is around the Horn of Africa, so South Africa. So they created the South African Company, and then they created what's called the Society of the Elect. That's what these meetings are. Is it's from the Society of the Elect, and it's just weird shiz, right? Like, why would you have someone pretending like cakes that are themed like a dead body, right? Just weird stuff, right? Here's like with two heads, like this is literally this painting is Lucifer's whatever. That's Marina Abramovich. Literally, she's like the world witch, like of all the witches, she's like the head witch. Super weird, right? So anyway, this like Society of the Elect was set up by Cecil Rhodes and the Rothschilds and a guy named Alfred Bate in the late 1800s because Cecil Rhodes said that Freemasonry was too boring. So they needed to spice it up, but it's just all really, really weird stuff. So anyway, like the weird kind of occult stuff from South Africa has been a thing for a long time. Is I guess what I'm saying. So and that's the thing about the banking is you look at where the money actually goes, right? Like Thomas Massie says, and the Fed, right? Well, the Fed's ending anyway. The Fed is literally bankrupt. You can actually look; they've been losing money ever since like I don't know if it's 2022. They've been losing lots of money every year, so they're literally going to go bankrupt. Um, and they go bankrupt because when the government prints money, the Federal Reserve buys that bond, and the interest payment from that bond goes to the member banks, which is like JP Morgan, Bank of America, Goldman Sachs. And then they're supposed to give back money through another mechanism, but they haven't been. So so Thomas Massie can say all he wants to end the Fed, and those big banks that he works for don't care because the Fed's already ending. It's already ran its course. those big banks squeezed all the life they could out of the Federal Reserve, and now they're still in a position to stay in control. So that's the, you know, it. That's why you have to really look into things, is because someone can say something, but then you have to really look at their actions to see what they actually line up with. So yeah, I mean the key is when the Fed is replaced, what do we replace it with, right? And they were using all these oligarchs, these corrupt banking oligarchs, they were using it as um, a way just to tax us and then basically shake us out of the assets, so that they could hold all of the assets, like BlackRock owning all the houses and all that. That's what their goal was. So now that they already switched that, now that we're basically renting everything, like they don't really need the Federal Reserve anymore, because it ran its course. So when you look at what South Africa has, I mean, literally the second biggest alcohol company, SAB Miller, is from South Africa, and it's one of the oldest companies, right? So the same networks that were made to traffic diamonds, which De Beers Diamonds is from South Africa. That's one of the main reasons that the Rothschilds were going there, is to buy up all the diamond mines. And so you have diamonds and alcohol. That's like two of the main currencies around the world, and they control them. And those networks to trade those around is used for all the rest of the black market. So when you actually look, okay, so why was Thomas Massie in South Africa? And it's because he was going to address the Libertarian Society of South Africa. I mean, so many parts of this are like weird, but also pathetic. It's like it's been a weird rabbit hole the last few days. Just I've been nonstop researching. This is their website. Literally looks like it came from 1995. This guy Trevor Watkins co-founded the South African Libertarian Society. Right? Okay, interesting. Definitely need to update their website. So what do you know? He also started the individualist movement, which is retarded. I mean, if you read this blog, it's literally retarded. No offense to actually retarded people, just people that are genuinely. Anyway, this guy, Trevor. But I guess here's just the summary, right? You could read the whole thing. I don't recommend it. Definitely a waste of time. This part says it. We can't just let anyone in. So, turns out you can. The concept of a worldwide passport. Anyway, it's open borders, right? This whole thing is about open borders. It's like, oh, people will say you can't just let everyone in. Turns out you can. No, you can't. They will kill your society, and we need to build a wall and build it tall, right? Like it's this is why they all hate Trump. It's so obvious. And here's that Trevor guy again, right? This time in the Free Market Foundation, right? So this is a little bit more. I mean, their website's at least from maybe 2005 rather than 1995. So congrats to them. And here is them with Nelson Mandela. And there's that guy that was Massey's boyfriend's friend that he mentioned, Leon Love or whatever. Okay. So Nelson Mandela wasn't on the board or anything of this organization, the Free Market Foundation. But, like we showed, they were close, right? It was a video on Instagram. So this is him with that lady, Nelson Mandela's daughter. His signed letter framed. There's like more stuff, right? Okay. So this is where it gets really, I mean, it's already spicy, but this gets extra spicy. Okay. So, and this is the other thing, people like I've never heard a single person talk about this, like ever in my life. Super weird, right? Nelson Mandela made a group called the Elders, right? these wise, good people. They're going to save the world, right? And so, who does he initiate it with? Richard Branson. Okay, are you kidding me? You like, so how did this not ring anyone's alarm bells, especially after um Richard Branson literally, like, we found out through the Epstein files, he was literally trafficking young girls, right? Like, it's unbelievable. He also has his own private island and all that stuff. So all right. So who else is part of it? Well, Jimmy Carter, Mary Robinson from Ireland, right? She's super corrupt, freaking idiot too. Um, and then Muhammad Yunus, right? Um, who's Muhammad Yunus? What do you know? Here's that guy. So there's Richard Branson with Jeffrey Epstein on the island, and then the Segway guy. Can't remember what his name is. Freaking anyway. So who else showed up in the Epstein files was this Paul Pullman guy who's literally the CEO of Unilever. And he was, I don't know, coordinating with someone from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And yeah, anyway, you go into that. It was this lady. Anyway. So, oh yeah, Branson has his own similar organization. So he's part of the elders group, but he also has the B team, which is even more corrupt than the elders, which I mean, like, is like splitting hairs because they're both like maxed out on corruption, but just seems like it's just a tad bit shadier. So, and then you got the like Francis Henry Penault, right? From, I mean, that super rich French guy, right? So, um, there's so much here. It's like hard to even like know where to start. I'm writing this out into a story, but I just really, people need to know because this affects us all, right? This is what's supporting Thomas Massie, and no one's talking about it. It's so weird to me. People are just taking weird attacks. It's just like, no, like, let's dig in and just show it's really obvious. The global black market based out of, Iran, China are the ones funding and puppeting Massie, right? So it's this. So here's Muhammad Yunus, and then there's that Paul Pullman guy. This will keep coming up. Here's Paul Pullman and Richard Branson. Anyway, this symbol, I can't remember exactly what one this is, but it's globalist. Yeah, Richard Branson, what a weird guy. Like, here's him choking. You can tell what they're probably into, right? Just being all like sexual with Obama. Here's him in the White House. Here's him again. So all these different occasions. Anyway, and it goes back. I mean, there's lots of weird history. Yeah, lots of weird stuff. And a lot of people like wonder why I believe in Trump so much, and I haven't always, right? I didn't, personality wise, didn't seem like, I don't know, just wasn't. I wasn't into business. But the more I look at it, I'm like, wow, like, he's literally fighting to save humanity. It sounds crazy to I don't know why it sounds crazy to say that because it's just true. But here's Epstein talking to Ghislaine Maxwell back in 2012. Turns out Lynn forgot to tell me about two children, and she misspelled children. And Nicks. So clearly code. And if you actually look up children, oh yeah, that's actually where that came from. Some of these pictures came up when you look up children, but misspelled. And just kind of weird, right? So then right after, so this is 2012 in September, and then in October, Trump says, got to do something about these missing children, but misspells it in the same way. Grabbed by perverts, too many instances, fast trial, death penalty. So this shows something that, I mean, that basically he had information through probably the NSA or whatever it is about these emails. So all the way back in 2012, they were watching Jeffrey Epstein's emails and getting ready to do something about it. But the problem is, like, this is like how do you take down something this big? I mean, this is like as big as it gets. So I don't know, just kind of cool that Trump's been fighting ever since. I mean, who knows? Probably way longer than that. But it's amazing. So this Mohammed Yunus guy, the Grameen app is a money transfer system that's not traceable, similar to something called M-Pesa. And both of those are two main ones that do a lot of the money laundering for the black market, like a lot of it. And here's the founder on Andrea something, don't remember actually. Anyway, they're all connected through this. Bill and Melinda Gates was sponsoring M-Pesa, which is the other one. And here you see them even talking about it in Epstein and Boris Nikolai, which is this guy, right? So then Larry Summers, Jess Staley. So these people were doing the money laundering for the global black market. That's why they're in that picture together. And literally in 2010, they unanimously voted, the Senate unanimously voted to give Mohammed Yunus, the guy that's doing the money laundering for the black market, the Congressional Medal of Freedom or whatever, like the highest award the Senate can award people. And here's him with Biden, Bill Clinton, getting an award specifically from Obama, not just for the congressional award. So he got one from Obama and from the whole Senate. So that means every single person that was a senator in 2010, when they voted for them, needs to be arrested and in jail forever, either because they're an absolute criminal with no regard for humanity, or they're so retarded that they're a danger to humanity and they need to be locked up. So, I mean, that's literally why, literally Isabel, Maxwell, right? Ghislaine Maxwell's sister is on the board of Grameen, right? That was when Epstein brought Mohammed Yunus to America so he could help the Clinton Foundation set up their money laundering. So here's him with Alex Soros, right? Yeah. This is interesting for a lot of reasons. So you have the same Ban Ki-moon as part of the elders. Lots of connections there. One that stood out was Lloyd's Bank, right? Is part of this whole thing. And the United Nations, right? Ban Ki-moon is I think, I don't know, super influential in the United Nations. So, but Lloyd's Bank, right? We talked about how they're the ones that are basically extracting the toll to go through, or they have been to go through the Strait of Hormuz because they're in with the terrorists. So who else is funding this? There's I actually didn't look up Rob Hersov. I need to do that. But this company called Remgro, chaired by Johan Rupert. Okay. So this guy owns a majority stake of Unilever in South Africa, right? So here's him with some different people when he was visiting the UAE, Strive Mawas, whatever. Anyway, some weird names. So this guy, he founded the Free Egyptian Party in 2011. So think about that. So one, anytime it says like open or free, just think George Soros, right? Everywhere around the world where there's some society that was said either free or open, it was actually just funded by George Soros. So right when George Soros is doing the Arab Spring, which he did through or Humanity Watch and those other organizations that he funds, this guy makes Free Egyptian Party in 2011, right? So he was part of this psyop. Who is the other guy that was in that picture? Literally from the London School of Economics. So the London School of Economics was funded by the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers. And it was the evolution out of the Fabian Society, which was literally the socialist society. Right. So Marxism and banking always go together. Why do they go together? Because no one in their right minds would ever relinquish control of money printing in their country. So if we're going to give our ability to print money to corrupt bankers that don't have any loyalty to our country, like we wouldn't do that, right? So they need us to be Marxists so that we're dumb, incompetent, with an economy based on victimhood and incompetence, so that we can't do anything. And then we give up control of our natural resources, or we're enslaved, right? And then this guy, Strive Mawaswa, whatever. He was a non-executive director of the board of Unilever. Okay. And then he continued to hold prominent positions in other international boards, including Netflix, which is super globalist and just very, I mean, they're just the worst, right? And the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation again. Like, it's insane to me. Like, I wish I could make a visualization to show, like, I'm not like cherry picking this stuff. We're talking the top 3 funders if you're looking at the top 3 funders of Thomas Massie, all of them are like balls deep into the most globalist crap ever. Okay. And once you see it, you like, cause you have to know because people might look at this and be like, okay, so what? There's lots of words on here. I have a vision. I call, whatever. So this is the same guy, right? He's taking a picture when he's visiting the UAE. Please share with others on the platform here about the Grameen Bank model and how it works. Okay. So all of this was all leading up to that. Okay. So it's just like unbelievable. Like, there's like a list of things I'll just like look up, right? Unilever, Grameen, London School of Economics. Like, you search for it, and what do you know? It's like always there. So then here's Isabel Maxwell, right? Ghislaine Maxwell's sister, on the board of Grameen America, or senior advisor, right? So wild. I think we're ready actually to go to the original. This is my original post. Yes, the world is nuts. And thanks, Sassy. And Dusty. Sean. Douglet. Stretch. Yeah, you guys are all homies. Sway. KJV. Anyway, yeah, this is some wild stuff. More people need to be aware of this. And yeah, I mean, we just literally can't let these people control us, right? And it's just like so terrifying to me to think that someone can literally get up, say a bunch of platitudes like, oh yeah, we want small government, let's be constitutional about things. And then people just like hook, line, and sinker just believe it all, right? Like, this guy's literally in the center of the worst of the worst. And yet there's a lot of people that genuinely think he's a good guy, but they actually don't know anything about him other than the platitudes he says. You look at his voting history, He's actually voting against a lot of things, right? It's like when you see how many people close to him are all about open borders, right? We've already touched on several. Um, that's why when push comes to shove, he actually, he finds a way to say that he's doing it for a different reason, but the end result is blocking. Um, the end result is keeping the borders more open, right? And we really need to close our borders. Okay. Um, so this is the first one I wrote. Um, okay. Man, it almost seems like a lifetime. It was like 3 days ago when I wrote this. Um, oh yeah. So here's, most people have a pretty short attention span, and it's just really like alarming, like how many people like feel so passionate about, having the files released, even though like we have plenty of stuff to prove that a lot of people really need to go to jail, right? I agree. I'd like more, but um, we haven't done anything with the files that have already been released, right? And one of them, for instance, is just this. So many people are completely ignorant of who Jeffrey Epstein really was. So Jeffrey Epstein had power of attorney over Les Wexner, right? I've heard a lot of people say that. They know that. Okay. Lex Wexner is part of the mega group. Okay. I've heard people say that. They know that. But what about Mark Rich, right? So he was the one, in my opinion, pretty sure, bankrolling the whole group, right? When the Ayatollah took over, um, see, the Shah had to do things like, I'm not saying the Shah was good or whatever. I don't know. He seemed pretty intelligent, actually. Um, I think he was like, wasn't okay just being a complete puppet. Like he's like, I'll side with you guys, but like he still had to operate in the daylight pretty much, right? If it's like, if you have a real company, a real oil company, those profits have to go somewhere, and there's like a certain amount of accountability. And they just didn't want that. And so because like how else was way less than half the people, it was way less than half the it was like 32% or less of the Iranian population that rose up to do the revolution, right? So how would they do that? How would they be able to win that war? It's like, oh, well, because Epstein and his group, they were the ones arms trafficking, right? So you had basically the Safari Club funding the Iranian Revolution, and it's because like we had a puppet there, but he wasn't a puppet enough. They needed to completely control the society and put all the resources on the black market where there wouldn't be any accountability. So they did so Mark Rich went and set up a deal with the Ayatollah, who took power in 1979, that he would sell it on the black market, the oil in the black market, for a 40% tax. So think about that. 1/5 of the world's oil, and then a 40% tax on that. And then they used all that money to fund all their terrorist networks, right? So this was the cash cow that Jeffrey Epstein ended up becoming part of, is managing that whole system. So he was a fixer guy for that. And so how did Lex Wexner get into his position to be in that? Well, he was on the board of Sotheby's, which they rate art, and the art um, is a way to basically print money. Because if let's say you duct tape a banana to a wall, you call it art. Lex Wessner comes over on behalf of Sotheby's and says, "Hey, that's worth $1 billion." Then J.P. Morgan gives you a loan for $1 billion with that banana on the wall as collateral, and then Lloyd's Bank will then give you insurance on that banana. And so it's just like a way basically an infinite money printer, because they could just evaluate anything at whatever price, and then they use fractional reserve lending to just like the bank will just come up with the money backed against that banana, right? So it's all fake. That's why people are like, oh, we want to start seeing some arrests. And the thing is like the amount of leverage in the whole financial system is, according to Epstein himself, right? He says, oh, the fractional reserve lending is 9x. So that's kind of hard to unwind, right? If you're 9x short what you would need to cover things, right? So in this operation, they have to fix things without crashing the entire global economy, because we have a system that needs money, and just there will be a lot of unintended consequences. So isn't oh yeah. All right. So here's the article. This was back in 2014. So it's like, how weird is that this is right when Epstein was holding what would Torchlight, which would end up becoming MMTLP, right? So the reason he's holding it is because he can lend it out to multiple parties. So yeah, so you can just, let's say he has a million shares. Well, he can lend out 1 million to one person, and a whole nother million to another person. He can do that as many times as he wants, right? And no one's gonna be checking. Why? Because he was doing a lot of it through Deutsche Bank, which is in Germany. And he was his hedge fund, actually. So these are held actually in the Cayman Islands. So even more so, no one would really know. So yeah, BNP Paribas got in trouble, and so what did they do? They ended up creating the tokenized shares, and I don't know if they ended up tokenizing MMTLP, um, but they definitely ended up tokenizing in 2017. Before any of those were meme stocks, in 2017, they tokenized AMC, GameStop, and Bed Bath & Beyond. And then they use those as borrow locates to infinitely short these stocks and then bankrupt them. Well, they tried to bankrupt GameStop and they couldn't. Now GameStop has $9 billion cash. And AMC had to do quite a few reverse splits. So I guess that, anyway, I think they're still, I think all these people are still short AMC, but it's kind of a shame it had to reverse split so many times. But you see the banks that Epstein was literally working with, Standard Charter, HSBC, mainly like the Bank of China, they were the ones who created these tokenized shares. Santander, they got in trouble for money laundering for the cartels. Societe Generale, that's another Rothschild bank. UBS. Anyway, these are the people who created this system. And then Gary Gensler, who was supposed to, who was the SEC chair, he left loopholes open so that all these banks could exploit crypto rules to port in these tokenized shares and use them as borrow locates. And so that was something else when you look at like Thomas Massie, and it's like, like a lot of what Epstein was doing was involved with MIT, right? This is Joy Ito. So the MIT Media Lab director, right? Gary Gensler's from a professor at MIT. Caroline Ellison from FTX, her dad was a professor at MIT. So anyway, just the MIT connection is definitely strong. And so the fact that he got his bachelor's and master's at MIT is just like, because then it makes you think like, okay, well, who were his mentors there? And that's we'll get there. So it's kind of interesting when you look at the Gary Gensler connection. Like that was what the smoking gun for MMTLP so far has been. I'm sure, hopefully there's gonna be more smoking guns. I mean, the audited share count is it will show all the smoking guns. But what they did find, MMTLP shareholders found through FOIAs, was that the SEC and FINRA and something called the FIF, which is basically a group that represents a bunch of brokerages, they were all colluding. They actually had emails colluding to halt the stock and to not let the S1 be filed. And when you then look into that guy, Howard Meyerson, um, and David Saltiel, you end up seeing that like there's so many Epstein connections. It's ridiculous. Um, I probably should go deeper into it, but it's is just read the article. I lay it all out there. I've been doing lots of posts on this, but here's just kind of a glimpse, right? So here's Howard Meyerson, and here's David Saltiel. So he was at the SEC, and man, when you look at every single connection, he was a director of strategy at Areva. Oh, here's Areva and this and the CEO in the Epstein files. Like, okay, cool. Or there's her in the Epstein files. There's Areva in the Epstein files. And then Gary Gensler, here's him in the Epstein files. Here's let's see. So he was hired by Jack Lew, who's in the Epstein files, and he came from what was it, Sandy Berger? Oh my gosh, dude! I don't know if Sense. I think he's probably the most evil person I've researched so far. Like out of literally thousands and thousands of people, he's probably the most evil. Oh, okay. I don't know. It's pretty bad. Yeah. So Brookings Institute, it's all the connections, same people. Michael Bloomberg, he's definitely in the Epstein files. And then it attaches eventually to, Robin Hood Foundation, all these people, right? Stephen Cohen, definitely in the Epstein files. So anyway, oh yeah, this guy, Philip Hemowitz, also in the Epstein files. So the amount of connect, this is just like, I tried to make it a little bit clean so that it wouldn't be overwhelming, just to show it's like, look, like this guy colluding to halt MMTLP, like he's doing it on behalf of the Epstein network. It's just so obvious. Let's see. And more with so this is the Cayman Islands Epstein Fund. A lot of these guys were from Austria, which is kind of an interesting thing. And then the securities lending, you see this We Match was the one we were showing. So they were the ones that were doing We Trade is their crypto tokenized shares, and We Match is their securities lending. So see, as the same company does securities lending and tokenized shares. And then you see who's involved: Societe Generale, JP Morgan, BNP Paribas, Deutsche Bank, NASDAQ, all these people, Barclays. So it's all the same people. It's really obvious if you follow the money. And the Austria connection is just fascinating because I remember a long time ago. This post is from a long time ago when I was looking at Bed Bath and Beyond, and for some reason it showed me Bed Bath and Beyond, and it was like VI, and I was like, what is that? Or V, no, BBYV or .V for Vienna Exchange. And I was like, huh. So it IPO'd right before bankruptcy. And right when it IPO'd, suddenly there's all these fails to deliver. Like, that was weird. So anyway, just following like that. So then years later to find out that all of Epstein's, like his hedge fund in the Cayman Islands was literally like several Austrian bankers. It's like, oh my gosh, that means that Epstein literally had not just MMTLP, but also Bed Bath and Beyond, GameStop, all that. I mean, all of his friends were the loudest people against GameStop and Bed Bath and Beyond. So it should be obvious. But anyway, it's crazy just to see the actual evidence of it. And they do these fails to deliver. I mean, just in the treasury market, I actually did some calculations how much you can make. It's like tens of millions of dollars per night just by failing to deliver US treasuries and investing that money overnight in what's called like the overnight borrowing window. So they fail to deliver a treasury, and then they use that money in the meantime, and they do that like all the time. So then they take that money, put it in the overnight window, and I mean, that's just like a lot of money. I mean, tens of millions of dollars every single day just for like mild cheating, I guess you say. But that money comes out of somewhere. Like, where does that come from? You pull the money doesn't just like it pulls money out of the system. It just does. So that's why inflation's been crazy. Is all these types of scams like this cause inflation to go crazy. And no matter what anyone says, inflation has not been 8%, right? It's functionally way higher. I mean, look at the price of a McChicken. No one, literally no one, is buying a McChicken because they want it. They're buying it because it's the cheapest thing and they're hungry. And so if McChicken like 4 years ago was like $1.29 and it's like $4.50, that means that was what inflation was, right? Over 300% in 4 years. So it's kind of crazy. I started looking at the holdings for all these different, like Virtu Financial, all that, Fidelity, and they all have these peaks of holding a lot of assets, and it shifts around which day they have a bunch. It's like you can literally see them cheating. They're passing this obligation around. That's so insane. Yeah, they're how they're approached to everything. So this is all part of what's called a mafia bust out, which is whether it's Toys R Us or it's Washington Mutual Bank. What they do is they pump a company up, get the valuation really high, make people buy into it, and they load it up with debt. Then they siphon off all the best assets. Then they bet against it and burn it down and collect the insurance. So they did it with, Bain Capital did with Toys R Us. I mean, literally, like they took out all these bonds, bought a bunch of properties, sold the properties, like, and then leased them back. And then right before the bonds come due, they're like, "Oh, we went bankrupt. Oops." It's insane. That's exactly what Bed Bath and Beyond did as well. Their bonds were due 2024. So what do you know? Right before that, 2020, end of 2023, they go bankrupt. Here was Washington Mutual. You look at all the people involved. They're all Council on Foreign Relations. They're all McKinsey Consulting. They're all Harvard. They're all Greek letter societies. They're all Goldman Sachs. They're all BCG. Right? It's the same group of people. All of them globalists. Okay. So, oh yeah, Kathy Rumler literally got a CIA medal, right? Like the highest CIA honor Kathy Rumler got. And in the Epstein files, Epstein's talking about how he was able to access these confidential skiffs where they get the confidential information. So let's see. Oh yeah, this is one of the craziest things. Oh, I should find out who sent me this, because I was they're like, hey, I think the same company that filed a motion to squash for the MMAT, for the MMTLP case, was working with Jeffrey Epstein, and it's true. Patton Boggs, dude, the Squire Patton Boggs, they were literally representing the Central Bank of Venezuela. Squire Patton Boggs represents defendant Efrain Antonio Campo Flores, one of two Venezuelan defendants charged with violating various sections of Title 21 USC by conspiring to fly 5 kilograms and more of cocaine into the United States. So the same drug cartel is working with Maduro. They were representing. But not only that, but wait, there's more, right? Michael Dunn, his immediate predecessor as CFTC chair. Dunn now works for Patton Boggs. Okay, cool. So you got CFTC, the Commodities Future Trading Commission. So he can basically let people do crime because he's supposed to be watching it. A lobbying giant whose clients include Goldman Sachs and Citigroup, right? Okay. But wait, there's more. So they actually represent. So here's Jeffrey Epstein basically saying that one of Patton Boggs's clients, TNC, has a bunch of frozen assets in Libya, like billions of dollars worth of frozen assets, and then that they'll get 5 to 10% if they can recover those assets. So literally, they're like working with the Libyan Transition National Council to in 21, a partner of Patton Boggs. It's so crazy that it's like they're basically wherever they see a big pile of money, like has to be like billions of dollars worth, they're willing to go after it and like do crazy. I mean, you can do some pretty crazy if you're going to be able to get $5 billion. You can do some pretty crazy things to get it. And when you look at how much money they made shorting just MMTLP, it was definitely billions of dollars. Same with Bed Bath, same with GameStop, all that. So they're willing to plan a lot for these heists and go all in and literally lobby to get people on the boards of these companies that they're shorting and have these board members then destroy the company from the inside out, right? Like all of that is worthwhile when they're literally trying to get billions of dollars. So here is so this shorting of stocks, this, like I said, this is how, the black market, which a big portion of the black market is oil, right? Iranian oil, but also Iranian terrorist networks. And so it's like kind of interesting that the National Iranian American Council gave Thomas Massie an A+. Oh yeah, so every senator that gave Muhammad Yunus this award in 2010, they should be in prison for sure. They definitely should be in prison. So here's where we get a little bit more crazy. Is Jeffrey Epstein actually said that he moved to New Mexico basically to take over a bunch of DARPA scientists that were there. Oh yeah. Okay. So the reason I'm bringing that up is because, who was Thomas Massie's advisor in school, right? All right. So let's see. So this guy, Woody Flowers, was basically one of the top two main advisors for Massie. So he talks about, anyway, all the ways he helped him in the robotics lab. And so this is that Flores guy with the Segway guy that we saw right here, right? And this is uh, Dean Common, right? And Richard Branson. Here you have him with Ghislaine Maxwell, even closer to Ghislaine Maxwell. I think there's actually another picture of them like swimming, doing something provocative, right? Um, yeah. So anyway, this is Massey's advisor. So it's like, after all the rest that we've seen, does that seem a little bit weird? Right? Like, do you think there's a little bit more there when it's like he's surrounded by so many people, so all deeply connected to the same network? It's like, yeah. Um, it's yeah. Let's see. Yeah, all this actually, like, so who was it that Epstein worked for? Well, it's for the Rothschilds, but I think that he was more so working for them, but like undermining them because he was like helping Goldman Sachs take their assets. I mean, that's what he did with Ariana Rothschild, is they literally killed her husband, took all of his money. So he was more so working for people like David Rockefeller and Henry Kissinger and Goldman Sachs. Which, I mean, the CEO has his own connections to Jeffrey Epstein. I mean, there's him with Ghislaine Maxwell, right? And the Clinton Foundation. He's a bad dude. Robin Hood Foundation. Yeah. Yeah, here's Obama's. So Kathy Rumler was Obama's chief White House counsel. Well, here's Obama's brother-in-law, Craig Robinson, talking about, sell the stock first, ask questions later. Luke Capital's Jacumba on GameStop, right? So why does this matter? I mean, one, there's, at least 65,000 families that were affected from MMTLP, and there's about the same with Bed Bath and Beyond. And we really need justice, but also all that money is going to do crap like this. This is literally Jeffrey Epstein and Bill Gates talking about strain pandemic simulations, right? So that's just, we really shouldn't be having the that much like, one, it's just a crime and they should be held accountable, but two, like, the criminals are literally going to keep doing worse things like hantavirus. So it's also kind of interesting that Victoria Sparks, she was part of the story, she's friends with Thomas Massie, but like literally her connections to Ukraine, and then Epstein's connections to Ukraine. Here's her with Joe Biden, so supposedly she's a Republican. Just really makes you wonder, right? Let's see. Last one, I think. Thomas Massie and Hezbollah. Okay, this is actually the funniest one, and I left it for last just because it's a little bit of a stretch, but I mean, it's not. I guarantee if they investigate it, they will find that it's very true. And if they expose it, yeah, dibs on that reward money. If anyone wants help to get this in front of the FBI or the appropriate people, I'll share those rewards. All right, so here's a big donor. So after everything else I've said, this should make more sense why this is significant. I mean, 55 grand, that's not like earth shattering, right? But as far as the amount of advocacy and everything, anyway, this connection is a very significant one. All the people in his company, by the way, his two other partners, if you look up their donating history, it's all to Democrats. So this is clearly a Democrat thing. So this guy, Mahru or whatever, so he was literally a Palestinian refugee, and he moved to the United States to pursue higher education right before college, right? So how does someone that goes from being homeless in the Middle East go right into college in America? I mean, does that seem weird to anyone else? Is that just normal? Because, like, how does he even speak English, right? So it's like, how, like, what would even be the purpose of sending someone to college in the United States if they don't speak English? Like, you would say, like, because they literally can't do school. So you would literally have to say, like, hey, learn English. Or maybe you'd bring them over here and say, okay, go to these language programs and then we'll let you go to college. But no, like, he just comes and goes to college, right? So my guess is that, he already learned English. Well, how does like a homeless person in the Middle East like learn English, right? That's, kind of weird. Okay. Um, so then you find this. This is very, very fascinating. This is the United States Attorney's Office, Southern District of New York. Lebanese financial institutions, including institutions linked to Hezbollah, allegedly wired over 300 million into the United States for the purchase and shipment of used cars to West Africa as part of money laundering scheme. Proceeds from car sales and narcotics trafficking allegedly were funneled back to Lebanon through Hezbollah controlled money laundering channels. So this ended up being, I don't know if it was this one or another one actually that was this at the same type that was like $200 million per month. Um, so this money like, as far as if you're going to launder money, you need assets that cost a lot and you can move them easy because they use like luxury stuff, but you can't move that very quickly. So the main high ticket item that's easy to move are cars, right? So, um, so this guy owns a car, like a series of car dealerships. I think like 9 or something. I don't remember. Um, and they can trade in old cars. So they sell old cars and new cars or whatever. But like that's the thing is say someone buys a car, they use MoneyGram or Pay Near Me, which is like cash only. So you have all these people paying for these cars, and so someone could buy a car, pay in cash, and then say like, "Hey, like they could write down a name, like they could sell it to someone, just like, oh, Jose Garcia, right? And then they never register it because they just take the car and they go to Mexico, and maybe then they sell the car there. So they bought it here, sell it there, come back, buy another car, sell it there. So they can just keep injecting this money into the system, and that's how they're washing this money. So it's just interesting that it's like they're right on the border of Texas. Well, it's right on the border. I don't know, as close as you functionally can get, where you have a big audience, but also then there's the border, and then so yeah, like all these cars probably just end up in Mexico, and they're laundering lots of money. I would bet a lot of money that they are. And they partner with MoneyGram, which is super corrupt, because there's just in Lebanon alone, there's 2,700 locations. Oops. And what do you know? They were getting in trouble at the same exact time as this, right? So in 2012, there was a MoneyGram crackdown, and what do you know? There was also a huge car money laundering scam going on. So, so yeah, they're definitely connected. There's a lot of other cases of cars. There's just a couple. So then you look further into this guy. So clearly he basically came here just to move cars because, like, think about that. You don't speak English. Or the only way he could have spoke English before getting here is if someone sponsored him, right? Was paying him. So how does someone go from being a refugee to suddenly have enough money to get English lessons? Right. So there's obviously someone financially backing him. And so then he comes and he starts selling cars. Well, how are you going to sell cars if you don't speak English, right? Or Spanish? So how is he successful at this, right? Well, it's because if he has the same people, basically he sells them the car, they take it to Mexico, they come back, right? Then it's not like he actually has to find people to buy the cars, like they're just moving the cars. So this guy is also part of this American Muslim culture. Oh, this is so he is on the board of the or advisory council for the Muslim Society of Arlington. And this was just one of their events that they were doing. You can see the guest speakers: Dr. Omar Suleiman, Jim Ross, and the state representative Salman Bojani. Okay, so let's see. So start looking into the first one, the Suleimani guy. Apparently, he's a great descendant of Muhammad. um, anyway, he has also worked to assist families of victims of police brutality, voice support for Black Lives Matter, and underscores the importance of anti-racism. Suleiman has advocated on behalf of Jamal Abdullah Amin and members of the Holy Land Foundation. Okay. So already, if this is the group that's sponsoring Thomas Massie, right? He's part of this council. And this guy isn't just a guest speaker. Like, they actually have a closer relationship than that, right? And this is like, literally the Holy Land Foundation was a Hamas operation here in the United States. Like, it's not like a secret, right? They got shut down because they were funneling money for Hamas. So then it gets like even deeper and weirder, right? So here is the same guy, a speaker for CIMB, this big bank in Malaysia. I just remembered, actually. It's big, which was doing $3 billion money laundering case associated with it. And then there was the Maybach Bank, also a Malaysian bank. It's like, okay, so you have an American going all over Malaysia to talk about Islamic banking. Interesting. Oh, what do you know? They also do microfinance stuff, just like Grameen Bank, which is actually, I think I get into it later. Maybach actually came up in the Epstein files in one of the bank transfers, which is interesting. But its first Maybank started, and its first like location it opened up was in Brunei, and that's literally Bill Gates or Bill Clinton with Epstein in Brunei. So they went on a trip to Singapore, and Brunei was where they went. I think they actually maybe even stopped in South Africa as well. But these are some of the biggest banks in Asia. doing a lot of the money laundering. Yeah. So here's the Homeland Foundation, political leader of Hamas and longtime U.S. resident, donated $210,000 to the Homeland Foundation. He was indicted in 2004 in Chicago, Illinois. The mob is. Here's his other friend, Solomon Bojani. So he's, the UNRWA, which is for Palestinian refugees. It was set up all the way back in the day. And what do you know? They have their own microfinancing. It's funny. I've been doing so much research. I kind of forgot what was in this article, but I just remembered. Wow, this is hilarious. Okay. Yeah. So they do microfinance. Central Bank of Jordan, Central Bank of Syria are part of it. Okay. This is where it gets funny to me. So fun fact, Syria has a GDP of $20 billion, and more than half of that, of their entire GDP, is fentanyl and meth, specifically Captagen, the type of meth they're doing or selling. So fentanyl meth is more than half of their GDP. So when you're thinking about this, so they pioneered this microfinance, these little loans that they give people. So they give them $200 to $3,000 with a repayment period of 4 to 24 months. And it's like, okay, be an entrepreneur. So let's just say that you're in Syria, and how much does the average person make in a month? $100. So the average person makes $100 a month, and you have a, I don't know, $3,000 loan or even a $200 loan. Like, how would you possibly make money? Right? You're not going to buy some equipment to do some manufacturing. You're not going to buy, I don't know, plant crops. And I mean, what could you possibly do with that money and be able to pay it back in 24 months? I mean, even in America, that'd be pretty hard. Like most people, if you said, "Hey, I'm going to give you 3 grand, make a business, and then pay me back within 24 months," I don't think most people could do it. It just is it's really hard. So then you do that in Syria? Like, you got to be kidding me. So what's the most likely thing they're going to do? They're going to sell drugs, right? If half their economy is drugs, then when they get this loan money, they're going to use that to buy drugs, and then they sell the drugs, and they make a profit, and then they pay back their loan, right? Okay, well, that's just a thesis. Okay, so let's see if it's true. Maybe. I literally was just writing all this as I was as I was researching it. So I didn't actually know the answer to that, and then I just looked it up. Because a lot of these loans are going to women, because we're helping women in Syria. Iran news. This is in April 2025. Iran news. Syria TV reports IRGC revives drug networks in eastern Syria using women and fake documents. All right, who's shocked? Seriously, it was so obvious. They're giving all these people money, mainly women, and saying, be an entrepreneur. I mean, it would be really hard, because say you're going to make food. I know someone that would make food and sell it from their car in Mexico. And even that was pretty hard, because say an unexpected bill or some expense came up, the profit margins were so small that it's oh, now I can't afford gas. I can't afford to fill up my car. So I can't, it's like crap. We're gonna have to do this on foot. We're not gonna be able to sell as many. It's hard to start your own business. So really, this whole program is set up just to juice the whole drug trade and set up those networks. So, oh yeah, this is where we're gonna get focused into the individual. Now we're gonna like zoom out. So who else is part of this bank? All right, this is one of the main banks involved. Country head of microfinance, micro and small medium enterprise loans. Oh, Banque Saudi Franci. So Franci from French. So basically a French connection from all the drug trafficking, set up a bank, and this guy does all the microfinance loans. His last name is Khashoggi. Does that ring any bells for anybody? Like maybe the Safari Club Khashoggi, right? I mean, maybe people remember Jamal Khashoggi, right? The journalist that got killed, and people are like, oh, I can't believe a journalist got killed, And it's like, bro, he was literally like, he was working for Jeff Bezos. Anyway, and he comes from the biggest arms and drug trafficking family on the entire planet, which is the Khashoggi family, right? They set up the Safari Club, which was what they did after the Iran, kind of moved to after the Iran-Contra affair got exposed. And it was the CIA, Iran, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Morocco, France, and Israel, and Rhodesia, and South Africa. Well, actually, I didn't know South Africa was on there. All their intelligence agencies got together and they're like, hey, let's just do coups all over and drug trafficking all over and do whatever we want. And so they did. And yeah, that was all set up with the Khashoggi family, specifically Anand Khashoggi, which is who was a mentor to Jeffrey Epstein. And yeah. So it's just crazy to me. Like, I just found this out when I posted it yesterday, I think, or the day before. And I've been saying that that the microfinance, these like small loans they give random people, is used for the drug trade, for the black market. I've been saying that for like, I don't know, almost a year now, more than that. And I don't know, it seems like no one cares. But then here it is, like literally the same drug family is part of it. And the spelling's different because English and Arabic have different ways of transliterating words, because the same letters don't exist in Arabic that do in English. Oh yeah, so here's Jeff Bezos. Oh man. So his wife is from Mexico, where, the drug cartels are. And like a lot of the drug cartels that are bringing drugs into the United States. And she says, this is her Wikipedia page. Sanchez makes trips across the United States Mexico border with this is about humanity, an organization dedicated to providing support for separated and reunited families of the border. Oh my gosh. Oh, I didn't even see that last part. That's even worse. So she could basically get caught with just random children and be like, hey, I'm reuniting them with their family. Oh my gosh. That's so sketchy. Yeah. So I mean, she's probably not getting her airplane checked, and she could have tons of drugs. That's just crazy. That's absolutely nuts. She was first married to Patrick Whitesell, a Hollywood agent and founding partner of Endeavor. You can look into that. It's kind of sus. Yeah, just everything is sus. So many things are so freaking sus. It's not even funny. The French connection, right? So why would it be the Saudi French bank, right? Banque Saudi Franci traces its French origins back to 1949. What was made in 1949? The Fraternity Mundi, the World Brotherhood, based out of France. That's why the name's in France. It was the Corsican Mafia, the CIA, the Swiss banks, the Jewish Mafia, the Italian Mafia. So that was actually made in 1943. That's what determined the end of the war, was when they all got together and said, "Yeah, we're doing this." Yeah. So, and the CIA's first job when it was formed was literally to work with and protect the Corsican Mafia. Super messed up. There it is. The Corsican Mafia was protected by the Central Intelligence Agency. So yeah. Let's see. But the French connection was the heroin trade. It's just kind of funny that like the AI call it the French connection. But literally the French connection was between Lebanon, mainly Lebanon, and France in Marseille. So it's been the same drug dealers the whole time. If you look it up, oh, the French connection ended, and it's like, when? Why? By who? It didn't end. They just, just pretended like it ended. Oh yeah, man, I forgot how crazy this article is. So here's this is crazy. This is totally wild. So this is Jeffrey Epstein talking to somebody. He says, should we arrange a private meeting with Jess with Anwar Ibrahim? This is the president of Malaysia, right? So we had the other guy that's close friends with one of the main funders of Thomas Massie, right? And he's going and speaking at these Malaysian banks. And here you have Jeffrey Epstein, setting up a meeting with his main contact at JP Morgan, which was Jess Staley, and Barclays also. Setting a meeting with the president of Malaysia, right? And this is 2012. It says if he becomes prime minister of Malaysia, he will clean it up. He will clean up, and it could be a gold mine for JPM. I know Anwar well, always stayed close to him for many years, even though everyone said he's finished and can never come back. Looks different now. So why do they say he was finished? We'll find out. So what do you know? 2012, JP Morgan starts worldwide securities, expanded its operations to Malaysia to do stock lending. So this whole system is set up by stock lending, aka shorting stocks, aka counterfeiting stocks. And so after that meeting, after that email, because we don't know for sure that meeting ever happened, but we see that the result that was supposed to happen happened, which is that JP Morgan moved into Malaysia, right? Dude, this guy's also, dude, I mean, anyway, so he's the president of the National Union of Malaysian Muslim Students and the Malaysian Islamic Youth Movement. Okay. So a Jeffrey Epstein friend probably shouldn't be around kids, especially when it's down here somewhere lower. Oh yeah. 1998, Anwar was removed from all government posts by then Prime Minister Mahathir Mohamad, and subsequently led the Reformasi movement against the government. He was jailed in April 1999 on charges of corruption and sodomy. That's gay sex. until his release in 2004 after his conviction was overturned. So his friend might have been a butt buddy, is what it's looking like. So this guy is prime minister right now of Malaysia. That's crazy. Totally crazy. So it gets even weirder. Like I don't know if people watching this probably it literally can't get weirder. Okay, here it is. Ian Miles Chong, right? Where is he from? Malaysia. Okay. Can't just assume just because someone's from Malaysia, they're connected to Epstein. Oh my gosh. So he's literally so Jake Shields. Ian, how was working with Ghislaine Maxwell at Reddit? At least I'm important enough for her to want to associate with me. You never will be. That is the, I mean, one, that is the stupidest response. Like, why would you admit that? And this is in 2026. This is February 2026. Jeez. And then you start seeing other things. I'm going to go eat a pizza and try not to think about masturbating. That's just so gross. That's so like why would you say and that was in 2013. Like why on earth would you ever say that? Um so he worked with Glenn Maxwell. He jokes about pizza and doing sexual things to fetuses. That's really, really weird. Ghislaine Maxwell was moderator. All these, I don't know how many he was moderator with. I think, let's see, world news, technology, r/politics, r/science. Dude, like what a weird, like that's so weird. And then he shows up, Ian Miles Strong shows up in the Paradise Papers. I don't know that a lot of people even know what the Paradise Papers were, but basically they exposed in like 2017 or 2018. There's a Panama Papers and there's also the Paradise Papers. And basically there's like all the money laundering, is done through the Cayman Islands or through Panama. And, some of it got exposed and he's there. So why was he exposed with all the other money launderers, right? That's kind of crazy. And then I can't remember how this connects one of the people there, but Price Waterhouse Cooper comes up. This is a guy from Singapore. Yeah, anyway, yeah, read the whole article. It's just lots. The number of connections is just absolutely weird. And then when you start to look at like, does he? So this guy is someone who's proud to do sexual things to fetuses, and he's proud of his connections still in 2026 with Ghislaine Maxwell, and he endorses Thomas Massie. Right? This is awesome. I didn't think I could admire Thomas Massie even more. Things aren't looking good for Massie, who I actually like. I'm not buying the allegations. Yeah, of course he wouldn't buy the allegations because like he knows the real things because they're doing the same things. Trump can't find anyone to run against Thomas Massie. He needs Massie out because Massie wants to release phase 2 of the Epstein files. Like, is this weird to anyone else? Like, literally, this guy is bragging about being friends and working with Ghislaine Maxwell. And then he's saying that Trump is scared to release the Epstein files. It's the craziest thing. I just don't even. I support Thomas Massie. Do you? Right? So, I mean, they just keep gaslighting. They keep saying they just assume people aren't going to do the research. That's why, um, got to get that information out there. Either reshare the posts, the articles. I mean, it's a little more organized than this, but or clip this, or just write your own. Like it's we gotta, we can't let these people gaslight us, right? Like you can't literally also brag about being friends with Ghislaine Maxwell and say that Trump's scared to release Epstein's files for that reason because he's part of it. And oh yeah, so the last connection, right? We saw more connections from the Koch Foundation with all of Massey's friends, but also there's just direct relationship, direct and indirect, all through Americans for Prosperity, different whatever, all these other groups. The Koch brothers are definitely a big sponsor of Thomas Massie. And what do you know? The Koch corporation's activity in the Middle East have faced scrutiny regarding regulatory compliance and international trade, sanction evasion allegations. Investigative reports reveal that during the 1990s and 2000s, foreign subsidiaries of Koch, Glips or whatever, utilized legal loopholes to sell millions of dollars in petrochemical equipment to Iran, assisting in building the world's largest methanol plant. So this isn't like a small assist. They were able to, they helped them build the world's largest methanol plant. And so this is decades. They were doing this for decades. So you think that they were doing this for decades and then they just stopped? No, they just got more like secretive about it, right? Foreign bribery investigation in 2008, a Koch compliance officer uncovered that employees within its French affiliate, wow, there's France again, had paid illicit bribes to secure lucrative contracts across North Africa and the Middle East, including Algeria, Egypt, Morocco, and Saudi Arabia. So there it is, right? It's really obvious, and it's really sad that I remember thinking not too long ago that I was like, oh, Thomas Massie seems to be pretty cool, right? He seems different than all the other people. It's like, no, he's a rebranding and a psyop, but it's literally the same uniparty. That's why you have Mitt Romney backing him. That's why you have, I mean, it's the same group that was doing the Iran Contra affair that is supporting Thomas Massie. And people can either wake up to that or not, but there it all is. And I appreciate anyone who tuned in. It's a wild adventure. It's hard to schedule, like figure out how to articulate all these things. I probably should just do one at a time, but I figured since the primaries are coming up on Tuesday that we probably should make an effort. So if you know someone in Kentucky, let them know. Maybe send them this stuff because I don't know that they would want to be part of it. Because if they go down to history like, oh yeah, I voted for Thomas Massie, that means they're either dumb or they're a traitor to America. So yeah, share this with anyone that you know in Kentucky. Make sure they vote. It's important. And appreciate you all. And thanks for stopping by. And